What's up guys, another Grand Prix already upon us. Just a couple of days it seems after the last one. Brilliant. Let's hope it's another cracker because the last three have been just spectacular for lots of different reasons, and there is everything to suggest that the Hungarian Grand Prix could well be another thriller. It's not the kind of circuit that naturally lends itself to overtaking, but that doesn't have to mean it can't be a great race, because there are a number of other things that do have a big impact at this place. One of those could be temperature. Some of the hottest races I've ever been involved in have been at the Hungaroring. It can get incredibly hot at this time of year there, and that can, as we well know, can have a massive impact on performance, on how much a team and a driver is able to lean and push on their own car. Do they have to compromise in terms of absolute power delivery to be able to control temperatures in the car? So that can have a big impact. The other thing is rain. When it rains there, my goodness, I've seen rain of biblical proportions in Hungary. So it can, and actually because of the nature of the circuit, because it's up and down, it's built into the side of a hill, it's in this kind of bowl almost on the side of the hill, and that can mean that you know, the rain tends to form rivers that flood across the circuit, which can become treacherous very quickly during a Grand Prix. The other thing is that because it's in this bowl and sort of shaded, if you like, on the side of the hill, you don't tend to get an awful lot of airflow across the circuit, so the heat can very quickly build up, and keeping the cars cool can be a real issue, both in terms of engine and power unit temperatures, but also in terms of brakes, also in terms of tyres. There's no real long straights other than that one along the start-finish straight. Other than that, it's lots of corners in quick succession. So temperatures build up in things like brakes and in the power unit, and you don't get much of an opportunity to cool them down. So that's definitely another thing that teams will have to compromise, or might have to compromise, by opening up some of the exit ducts at the back of the side pods, for example, wider than they otherwise might like to, just to be able to make sure they don't fall foul of excessive temperatures. We know how heavily that impacted Mercedes, of course, in Austria. Brakes as well. Big brake duct scoops, which are not good aerodynamically, but could well be necessary. Because particularly if you fall into a line, into a train behind a car in front of you, it can be very difficult to get enough airflow through the car to keep things cool. So that's definitely one to keep an eye on, to watch out for. It's the kind of circuit which, in terms of aerodynamics, is about, well, it's high. It's a high downforce circuit because it's all about corners. There's so many corners coming thick and fast, and very few, in fact just one, long straight where you'd want maximum velocity. So the compromise has to swing towards the tight and twisty part of the circuit, and you take a hit along that long straight in terms of your maximum speed. This could then, because of that, because aerodynamic grip and mechanical grip are the things that enable you to deliver quick lap time around here, it could favour somebody like Red Bull and Max Verstappen. This has always been a circuit that they've enjoyed. It's not typically been a circuit that that Mercedes have enjoyed. Although they won last year's race, it's not typically been a strong one for them. So I think we've got a real strong fight, particularly at the top with the top three. Nothing between any of the top three at a place like this. And then again, into the midfield. It's already a very tight battle, and I think it's going to be very difficult to split and to see who comes out on top of that. So we could have almost two very brilliant, interesting races between the top three teams and then the rest on Sunday. Let's hope so anyway. In terms of tyres, it's the circuit was relaid, I think, in 2016, and that did away with a lot of the lumps and bumps in the circuit. It's nowhere near as abrasive as it used to be. So for that reason, wear and degradation on tyres is pretty low. In fact, the only degradation we might see could be thermal degradation if the temperatures do get very high. If track temperature is very high, for all the reasons I talked about earlier, it's difficult to cool the tyres down. You might see drivers having to start to pull out from behind the car in front just to get some airflow over the surface of their tyres to stop them from overheating, because thermal degradation could be the only thing that really destroys grip levels, and that will only be if it is really hot. So other than that, it should lean towards a one-stop race for that reason, the fact that they will last for very long stints. given that there's very little wear or degradation. So so that's that. We've got the middle of Pirelli's range being brought here, and that I guess is very similar in terms of performance level to the tyres that we had in the last iteration of Pirelli tyres, if you like. The compounds of the C2, C3, C4 that we have this weekend for Hungary are very similar to what Pirelli brought last time around, so I guess that's a natural continuation. That's what we've seen at most circuits. What else can we expect? Well, it's a circuit that actually, for me, this is a circuit when I think back, I think of lots of great races there. I think of the incredibly high temperatures that I mentioned. The thing that really stands out in my mind is, of course, that infamous pit stop of 2007 between Lewis and Fernando. I mean, what a moment that was. What a moment. I have written about it extensively in my book, if you don't know, and if you haven't read it, by all means go and get it. All good bookshops now. There's a plug. But it was one of those moments that I don't even know how to describe it. I was involved in that pit stop, sitting there as confused as everybody else was as to why Fernando just was not moving. And only really once he'd actually driven off from the pit box and Lewis pulled in and we realised what had happened and the timings that were involved, did I realise that that's what Fernando had been doing. And a little part of me, although I was disgusted with that behaviour that weekend, and angry with both drivers over the course of that weekend for various reasons, I had to have a little bit of respect and a little bit of admiration for the quick maths that he managed to do in his head while sitting there holding the car on the limiter on the brakes, waiting, calculating how much time he would need to get around and take the green light before the red light then came out, the checkered flag, at the end of the session, which would then mean Lewis couldn't start his flying lap. So I had to have a little bit of admiration for the fact that he managed to calculate that to some incredible level of accuracy before then leaving the pit box. But what an amazing moment that was, and of course it triggered or certainly accelerated the whole Spygate drama, and you know the rest of the story, and if you don't, it's in my book. So that's my memories of this place, and the heat, as I say, always really, really hot. I've seen grid girls fainting on the grid in Hungary a couple of times, actually, because it was so hot. But anyway, there we go. That's what I imagine it's going to be. I think it could be a really tight and close race. It's one of those circuits that's all about start-stop, so it's longitudinally limited in terms of tyres, and that means that, you know, it's all about getting traction down out of slow corners. It's about braking with braking stability into slow corners. If you get wheel spin whilst bearing the throttle out of a slow corner, that thermal degradation that I was talking about, if the track temperatures are high, only accelerates, and it accelerates rapidly. So you can really destroy your tyres thermally if you start spinning the wheels up out of slow corners. So it's about, you set your power unit up less so for absolute maximum power, and it's much more about drivability and having that power progression come in, usability from a throttle perspective, from a driver's perspective. So they do make changes to the software and the way and the kind of parameters that the maps that go into things like throttle pedals and power unit control systems. So there's a lot of work going on in that area, but it's really important because it can make a really big difference. Anyway, I think that is about it for the Hungarian Grand Prix, but I need to give away another prize. And this week it's a really good one. Actually nothing to do with Hungary or the Hungarian Grand Prix. It's actually a Melbourne Australian Grand Prix related prize, but you're going to love it. It is some artwork from a company called Multi21 Design. And they're obviously a partner with the GPBox, as are all of my my prize companies this year. So thank you to both of those. And I think you're going to really like this one. Look at that. Can you see that? That is an A3 print on really high gloss material of a kind of abstract design of a Formula 1 car layout. It's got the circuit layout, of course, at the bottom. You can see that. And it spells Melbourne if you can't read that as well. It's a really nice, interesting and very different design. Wouldn't be the same, would it, without one of those? almost pop arty, but I really like it and you could have it, and it's very simple. We're going to go back to the way we've given away a lot of these prizes. All I want you to do is share this video on a social platform, and all you need to do is share it. So copy and paste a link to this video onto Twitter or onto Facebook. You can do it on either of those platforms as long as you use the hashtag GPBHUN, hashtag GPBHUN. Share the link. If you want to say something nice about it, then great, love it. I would read all of those and I will go through them all. And I'm using a comment picker now to randomly select a winner, which is why you can now do it on multiple platforms. So I will select all of those correct entries from all those shared videos with the hashtag from Twitter or from Facebook, put them together and use a comment picker to select randomly the winner. And I'll do that on Monday in the Ask Elvis video after the weekend, of course. So get any questions in for that video, by the way, as well. I hope you have a great weekend. Enjoy the race. Let's hope it's a cracker. And good luck in winning this. Ta-da. Right, I really enjoy this circuit. It's a busy lap, but it's a really nice lap when you get it right. Not much time to breathe in between all the corners. Right, the slingshot at the final corner is crucial then. A different line qualifying to the one you take in the race to give you a fast exit onto this really long, the only long straight on the circuit before a big stopping zone, almost hairpin like. And then halfway around this corner, just at the exit, whilst your steering wheel is still almost at 180 degrees, you're scrabbling for the DRS button because just there is the second DRS line. Punch that and then you run down this hill, much steeper than it looks on TV, and gravity pulling your car down means it's very difficult to get the car stopped without locking a wheel going into this left-hander of turn 3. The circuit also falls away from you to the outside, which induces understeer through that one as well. Quick as you can though, back on the throttle, run over the inside curve and the outside curve, and then climbing up this massively steep climb up towards a little chicane with a dab on the brakes through there. Running over the inside and outside curves, and then stop it here. If you get too leery into that corner, you'll be heading for that barrier across that tarmac, and in the wet that can become slippery. We saw what happened in Hockenheim. I know it's a different circuit, but you've got nothing stopping you before you hit that barrier if you run wide at that corner. Climb up the hill then and hard on the throttle with a run down towards the chicane. Get it stopped. Don't use that part of the curb there. Look at that big sausage curb on the inside there. If you run the plank, the bottom of the car, over that part of the curb, it will launch you across the circuit, over the grass and into that barrier at the exit. So you've got to be careful. Take a bit of curb, but not too much. Fast and flowing through this bit, really nice flow to the circuit through here if you get it right. This bit's flat all the way through here, and then a little dab on the brakes. Don't use too much of that inside curve there. Let it run wide before a long little blast on the throttle down a little slope halfway along. Touch on the brakes to this 90-degree right-hander, run it out nice and wide on the exit, and then the final part of the lap, a late braking and late turn in to this corner here, the penultimate corner, because this will give you another slingshot for a blast on the throttle down here. Pit lane entry to the right, and then we're into the final corner where there's a couple of different lines you can take, hugging the inside for most of it, but different in qualifying, and then back onto this start-finish straight once more.